Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the first Brighton Cloud event of 2025. We are starting off the year strong with New Year, new frontiers in natural language processing. And speaking of new, our featured speaker today is actually going to be joining the Brighton Cloud organizing team. So what better way to welcome her into the team than to make her do a talk for the first time in the first Brighton Cloud event. But fantastic. Let's go through what we've got planned for today. In terms of today's agenda, we've had our pizzas, we've had our drinks. We'll do some introductions to Brighton Cloud and some exciting things going on over in Silicon Brighton. Then we've got our talk on real-time insights, leveraging the cloud for instant LLP solutions, followed by some questions and answers. We've got a little demo and a quiz. The quiz will be running throughout, so get your phones ready. For some QR codes, and then we'll be looking at closing and some networking. On the right, we've got some couple announcements. We have just launched this year our official company LinkedIn group for Brighton Cloud. The previous one that we had was very much centered around community, people to repost, everything else like that. But we've decided to have it all formalized, so feel free to sign up. The QR codes will be over there by the drinks and also at the end. And then we're working on an upcoming event. Hopefully we'll be looking at a collaboration with the Green Software Foundation and what is currently working title, Green Cloud. So that'll be over in April to celebrate Sustainability Month. Right, so people are aware, this event, like all our events, are recorded. If you do not wish to be included in the photography or video content or anything like that, just reach out to myself or any member of the Silicon Brighton team. So over to Cameron to talk about some exciting things going on in Silicon Brighton.
Hello, my name is Cameron and I'm from Silicon Brighton. You may have seen a few of these Evolve banners and stickers dotted about the room, and that's because we are launching our first ever all-day conference. It's looking to be the meetup of all meetups, where we are is one of our fantastic meetup groups today in Brighton Cloud. We've got a few organisers in the crowd as well. Currently just speaking through everyone in the community, making sure that we're representing everything that we want to on the day, as well as offering up exciting innovation in digital tech. What we do is that we are the hosts of Brighton's and Hove's digital tech sector, and we just make sure that everyone in the community is heard and are lined up with opportunities where their voices should not only be heard, but also used to the best of their ability and ours. We're very proud of the meetup groups that we support. As I said, we've got a few meetup organisers in the crowd tonight. Woo! And yeah, we cater for loads of different topics and digital tech groups. Like we've got Tech Jumpstart, which is all about getting your first job in tech, and also getting your next job in tech sort of thing. So those are always great and upcoming soon. We've got a few hardware ones. We're breaking breadboards and yeah, a load of fantastic topics all to go into. We'd like to say thank you to our supporters and our sponsors as well, who are fantastic. They allow us to do what we do in so many ways. So we're massively appreciative of all of that. You can stay up to date with all of our activity on our link tree, which gives you a link to our Slack channel where the conversations and Q&As that we have tonight can continue on from there. We offer up loads of opportunities there, and it's a really nice way for everyone to just have like an equal say and look for opportunities and help provide for the community as well. These are some of the Silicon Brighton values. If you see in any of our events or any of activity that we do something that doesn't align with this, please come and talk to me or any of the meetup organisers, Steve or Grace, and we will put that right. We really do hold these values dear to us and kind of is the foundation for everything that we do. Shall I talk about Runway East? Yeah, Runway East is where we are this evening. They are a fantastic co-working space, offices, and not most importantly, but for us, they provide all of the pizza. So they're absolute legends, and we massively appreciate them. So yeah, and they let us have this event space absolutely for free, and yeah, just really great people all round. I think the next slide might be back to you guys. So I'll give you the clicker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mentioned that we've got the QR code for the new Brighton LinkedIn page. So that's the picture on the left. And then again, the one which the community group, feel free to share resources, other meetup groups or anything like that. I know I was speaking to Jack, who's one of the people who runs the Sussex Azure one. They've got an event on in February the 4th, and you've got the recap event, which I'm very excited for AWS because you've got a certain speaker there as well. And that's going to be, I think, the 13th. 17th, sorry. Yeah, 17th. So feel free to, reach out. It's all about community, irrespective of which cloud from there. Right. On the left, you've got the QR code for the Slack community. So this inside the Slack group, you can look for hashtag Brighton Cloud. And in there, you've got our community channel, but also you've got the meetup page where we've got over 500 meetup members. So feel free to join and follow the group so then you can be notified for any new events or anything like that. Right, over to this talk of today, we have Antra talking in regards to real-time insights and leveraging the cloud for instant LLP solutions. You're on a lanyard, aren't you?
Welcome to the team. Well, hello everyone. I'm Antra, as you can see. And today we have a very exciting topic of NLP. Since everyone would have used or would have tried by themselves Gen AI, and still, while we are leveraging Gen AI to do everything in a very fancy way, the basics of NLP and how you could use NLP to do a very quick, insightful analysis is something which I think a lot of people miss on the point that something is really, really, really easy, is just available on a click of few buttons on your laptop using Python. So before we begin tonight, there are a couple of questions and quizzes we're coming across the slides. So for that, I would like you to scan this QR, which would be this. And this will lead you to a Menti page. And you would have to put your name. And then I would be beginning this quizzes, which would be going across the presentation. And at the end, we do have some exciting trophy for the winner who would answer all the questions correctly. Yes. Has everyone done that? Yes, you could put. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then I can begin. It's not technical glitches. Woohoo! I see 9 players. Yep. So what do you think is the early concept of NLP date back to? It's a bit tricky because people do think it's recent, but it goes back as 1950. Well, so that question has set the background for the next thing, which I would be going through, is the history of NLP. So as we could see, it started in 1950, where actually there was some work done around semantics of the text or the language which we speak, and primarily to begin with was in English. Then late 1980s, we had statistical approaches to begin with, such as RNN, LSTM. But very recent one is LSTM. When I say recent, it's still 2000s. Next up, we had early 20s and 2018, and that's where it was, you could say that era was rise of deep learning models and more sophisticated NLP model using neural networks. And that's when you see things like BERT or GPT coming up in 2018, and current decade, I would say 2019, which we are living in, LLMs or Gen AI or more advanced model, which we are using right now. So that's a brief about NLP history and how far we have come across using NLP and how far we have developed in this approach. So next slide is basically a quick introduction of what NLP is. Everyone should be knowing it. NLP is basically combining the power of text analytics and coding to basically extract meaningful insights from human language, not only English, but languages spoken across the world. And why real-time insights can be important for business. So up until ChatGPT came into picture, businesses still had a very dubious concern about using text analytics in their organization. A, because it was costly. B, because it was not very reliant in terms of deeper analysis, because to do a deep NLP analysis, there was you would have to write a very difficult code until ChatGPT and LLM came into picture, and it was all about calling a simple OpenAI API to do a very complex analysis. So instant decision-making capabilities, improve customer experience if you're working in customer businesses, and competitive advantage in fast-paced markets, such as marketing, such as, let's say you have a consumer group or something like that. So real-time insights basically give you power of knowing what's happening right away using unstructured data. And that's where NLP come into picture. Simple things like sentiment analysis, customer feedback analysis, or even fraud detection. So those are the quick examples which everyone would have known about NLP. Moving on is the next question, which is, which of the following is not an NLP-related word? The option are BOW, POS, DTM, and RE. I'd be interested to see if anyone gets it wrong. Yes, there you go. DTM is not an NLP-related word. And can anyone attempt to tell what DTM is? Doing too much. That's a Gen Z slang which I came across, doing too much. So hopefully we're not doing too much for tonight. Well, so moving on, understanding natural language in general. So the words and acronym which you saw on the last slide, which basically was NRE, bag of words, BOW, and POS, part of speech, as you can see on the slide. So these are the few concepts which are basically the highlighting concepts to understand what actually NLP is all about. To begin with, n-grams or bag of word approach it is as simple as understanding how many words do you have in the corpus, or how many n-grams is basically could be one word, could be two words together in a sequence, or maybe three words. That would be trigrams. So you have bigrams, trigrams, and so forth, so on. And the main reason to use that is that, let's say you have keep it up coming up a lot of time in your article or something like that, and you just want to see how many it's coming up. So that's where you use n-grams or bag of words approach. Topic modeling, discovering main themes across collection of documents. Let's say you have to analyze a chunk of 100 articles. You want to see what topics are coming up. Topic modeling, there you go. NRE, which is name entity recognition. This concept is basically that you feed in a text and then you get what entities are. When I say entities, it could be name, it could be place, it could be financial number, it could be object, it could be emotion, anything. And you can define entity whatever you are targeting. So let's say if you have an article where you want to target, want to see how many times your organization was mentioned in a news article, and let's say if I'm just scraping articles from internet and I want to see how many times my organization was mentioned in that article, I would do an NRE check, get the organization out of the text corpus and see how many times it appeared in the whole corpus. Part of speech gives you an understanding of how the language was written. For example, part of speech analysis on a research article would be very different to part of speech on a Twitter feed. Information retrieval, this is like searching large data text to find relevant information. I won't go deep into information retrieval because that's a very complex topic. Text classification, As it mentioned, it could be binary, such as identifying whether it is positive or negative. It could be multi-class. Let's say your overall text is business, but then you have multiple classes inside it. Business in what sense? Financial business, technical business. So you could have multiple branching classes defined, and then you can do multi-class text classification. Moving on, semantic text similarity, which is basically how similar each words or phrases which you have observed in topic modeling or in bag of words are. So imagine something like cloud of words, but you also get to associate how each of the words together, like how close or how far these each words are, to give an understanding. Let's say if I say I'm happy, and Zareen said I am very happy or I'm delighted. Happy and delighted are both positive, but how much associated they are, that would be something coming from semantic text similarity, which gives you a number of how similar both words or both phrases were. And aspect-based sentiment analysis, that's an interesting one. So once you have done sentiment analysis, meaning you have an article which says that that article was, say, 70% positive side and 30% negative side, you're interested to see what aspect of the article is leading to 70% positivity. And that's where your aspects come into picture, where your sentiment model basically explains what words or phrases it saw in the text that it led to 70% positivity. So that was a basic run through of what NLP on a ground level is, apart from using sophisticated LLM or Gen AI models. And if you know these concepts, you can still do wonders in NLP without going to those complex models. Next up, traditional NLP approach. So how are we going to identify what exactly was traditional NLP approach? On-premise systems with limited scalability, batch processing, reliance on pre-trained model, or exhaustive pipelines. So that was the word before 2000 or early 2000, traditional systems. And we do have a lot of businesses right now running on-premise analysis with pipelines built from scratch. And they do have their own models, which they just keep modifying over time as it drifts. Well, my company does that too, and it is working awesome in business, to be honest. But few of the challenges which comes with traditional approaches are high latencies. That's where if you have all of a sudden a lot of data coming in from another part of the business, and that's where you would have to think a bit about latency of how your pipelines are built. Hardware dependencies, if you're having on-premise system, definitely you have to look into hardware. Difficulty in handling sudden spike in data volume, irrespective whether it is, if let's say you are integrating two databases and then you're running your pipeline, so you would need to have certain, what is a refresher of the whole pipeline. And that's where the few challenges which we see in traditional approaches and on-premise system deployments. And that's why we have cloud. Moving on. So building on the traditional approaches and the concept of NLP analytics without using any sophisticated model, any sophisticated algorithms or LLMs, ChatGPT, OpenAI, whatsoever. Here are the quick examples which I would like to emphasize one by one, which would be a word cloud. Something as simple as word cloud could give you a lot of insight. Let's say you have some database where you're analyzing sales in different cities and you have numbers coming up. This is bag of word approach. You got the words, and let's say the biggest you could see is San Francisco. That means that word has appeared a lot of time in the corpus, and that's why it's the biggest on the picture. So you could have something like this, or something like this. This picture is basically a representation of topic modeling. So, well, I have taken these pictures from internet, and these are some of the best. So this is some topic modeling done on a medical, sorry, not medical, on some article, which was on COVID and conspiracies related keywords. So you could see a lot of keywords came into picture, and you could see a graph of how they are associated and how much overlap. And that's where semantic comes into picture, that you have your topics, you have your semantics, and you're going to represent something called scatter plot across the grid and see how each of the topics or the categories are overlapping. And this could work wonders if you have a customer-facing business and you just want to see, let's say, how all the reviews or the feedbacks coming in are related to each other. Well, this is even more interesting one. So this is from voice data. So let's assume that you have a business, or let's say it's a call center. People are calling in, you have audio. So you used NLP or Python to transcribe your audios to text, and that's where you're bridging the gap from audio to text. Once you have that transcription, and you don't want to use LLMs, or you just know basic Python and NLP, you could do something like n-grams and bag of word approaches and topic modeling. You could see there are topics coming up here. You could see how each of the topics are going in time. So basically, let's say someone complained about poor damaging package. It came up 10 times and it has changed 52%. So basically, if you have these kind of topic modeling pipelines built into your business and you are running that pipeline over time in real life, or you're just storing the results, you could have very basic but intuitive and insightful dashboard like this, where just with simple analysis, you could see how your business is doing, how the topics or the concerning issues are coming up, topics with positive association, topic with negative association. It all could be done with very simple NLP strategies. Moving on, which brings us to the next question. Name some cloud platform or analytical tools you have used for NLP. I would be interested to see what all you guys know, because there is some kind of biases and some kind of hidden gems, I would say, in the market that people don't use. Well, Tableau, Power BI. Yes, SageMaker, TCP, NumPy, Tableau, Chalkwalker, Azure, Pandas, Databricks, interesting, yes, Gensim, any more? That's interesting. Let's see. Cloud-based NLP. Now that we have seen traditional approaches and traditional way of doing things, we do have an option of going cloud, on the cloud. Why? Because A, it gives scalability. It's very easy to handle workloads. B, real-time processing with low latency analysis, which basically is like you could have your pipeline running without any glitches or doing a lot of analysis. And you don't have to care about the hardware and stuff like that. Cost efficiency, pay as you go model. So you don't have to even worry about paying lump sum straight away. You would pay as you use the facilities. And continuous update, always access to have latest model and features. So you're at top of your game using top or the most latest model using cloud. And to name some, you could see a couple of icons which I've mentioned. Well, AWS Comprehend, IBM Watson, Data IQ, which is one of the analytical tools, Microsoft Cognitive Services, Einstein. Can anyone guess what that logo is? Einstein. Yes, that's Salesforce. And people will be surprised. That's really good to explore, to do NLP and cloud kind of stuff. Oracle, well, yes, Oracle comes into picture when we have DBs, but then Oracle do have NLP APIs, which you could enable on top of your DBs to do NLP. And well, we do have Google also there in the pictures. And these were just some of the platforms and the tools which you could use very easily to do NLP on cloud. Well, there are a few more, and I would have to get a couple of more slides to mention all of them. But these are the ones which I have basically used. So I thought I would share these with you. Moving on to real-time application of NLP. So what does it mean when we say real-time application? So let's say something as simple as social media sentiment analysis. You have your GCP Cloud APIs to do that. Let's say you could do real-time monitoring of the brand. You could do immediate response to customer feedback. You could do trend analysis very easily for the event or for the product using Cloud Google APIs. And that's pretty much taking out everything from social media sentiment analysis. Moving on, you could do something like real-time translation. So Microsoft services do have very good use case of real-time translation where you could basically convert any audio to text and then analyze it, which is very important because one of the, well, in this world, we do have quite a gap between analysis on structured data and analysis on unstructured data. And when I say unstructured, it's not just text, it's audio, it's picture, it's video. And I would say as far as I've seen, and I have talked to people, Gen AI is doing wonders. Then we still do have a lot of caveats where we don't actually use Gen AI in business. I would be surprised to see if someone is actually using Gen AI to do something in their businesses. It's always traditional approaches. So this use case of converting audios to text and then analyzing actually is a very good use case for people or the businesses which have audios. Moving on, NRE on news monitoring. IBM Watson. IBM Watson is a kick-ass approach to do any kind of NLP analysis. So one of my first NLP tasks was to do journey analysis. And it was basically that everyone in the company was writing a letter to the CEO. And we, as a data analyst, had to make a pipeline to analyze all the letters because company was growing exponentially and CEO didn't have time to read all the letters. So we used IBM Watson's API to do sentiment analysis, to do aspect-based sentiment analysis. So it not only told me was the letter positive or negative, or was someone cribbing about their problems, or was someone appreciating something, but it also told me the emotions behind it and what was leading to those emotions. So IBM Watson, I would say, you could go and explore this, and they have pretty well-defined APIs and documentation to do some very interesting things. Moving on, that brings us to the next question. And that would be, let's see, what's the question? Which one of these is not provided in Google as their cloud offering? XAI, blob storage, BigQueries. Blob storage, yes, that's not Google's, that's Azure's. And Vertex AI and BigQuery is Google. BigQuery is their database query mechanism where you have big tables and you use BigQuery to query that. Vertex AI, hype of the market right now if you're using GCP. Well, that leads us to this interesting topic of using Google NLP API. Using Python, so Google has natural language processing APIs, which are REST APIs, and you can use them using Python to do sentiment analysis and very quick NLP analysis with minimum code you would have imagined. So all it needs is you should have a cloud platform project on Google Cloud. You should enable your billing. You should have NLP APIs enabled. There's a mechanism to do that. I will be showing that. And then you should have an authenticated account, which basically is that you should have a service account and you should have a key connected to your service account to the NLP service. And then you should have a code which refers to the key and so forth, so on. And I'll be showing all of that tonight. So talking more about the API, it's cloud-based pay-as-you-go service. Users, you could do meaningful insight, or you could get meaningful insight from the data, such as feedback analysis, query searching, or you could use it to do a chat history analysis or text document analysis, What does it support? It supports 11 languages for sentiment analysis, just 3 for entity analysis, which is NRE entity analysis, and those are English, Spanish, and Japanese. Pricing, well, pricing is interesting here. So you would have to pay $2 per 1 million Unicode characters, which basically is that if you have a document of, let's say, 1,000 words, Unicode characters, then it's going to be 1 unit. So I would say still not that bad, but be mindful when you're using it in some automatic pipelines because it might burn hole in your pocket. And well, that is just the API. Google does also have something called Google Vertex API. AI, which is their go-to end-to-end platform for any kind of deployment, ML ops, and NLP is one of them. Yes, you could use sophisticated models, you could use Gemini to do your stuff, you could do prompt engineering, but for the context of this presentation, I'll be doing a quick demo now to show you how you can use these APIs with Python. Well, the console would look like this. I'll go to the code in a minute, but before I go there, this is how the console would look like. If you go to the Google's website, you would have a play area where you could basically copy paste anything and get instant result, just to give you a taste of how these APIs work. So I just copy pasted something like Google headquarters based in that address, unveiled a new Android phone for $7.99, and Sundar Pichai said that user would be very happy to use this Android. Entity analysis. So that's how your entity analysis looks like. You see your organization as Google coming up. You see consumer goods coming up as phone and Android. You see location coming up at CA, California, and the address of the office. So you see how important it would be if you would have a pipeline which just do a simple thing like entity analysis and gives you, let's say, locations mentioned in the articles or companies mentioned in the article or person mentioned in the article. Sentiment. That was a positive sentiment. You can see a very big green sign. And so basically, which shows that whatever I copy pasted there was positive, essentially. So you see this gives sentiment on each paragraph level. Last line, which says Sundar Pichai in his keynote said that the user would love the new iPhone, has the highest sentiment. You could say 78. And the first paragraph was somewhat neutral. That's why it's yellow. But the overall is positive again. So that's how the sentiment results come up on Google API. Moderation, you could see something like what is the, what you say is not topic exactly, but like essence of the article, whether it is political, whether it is something about religion, whether it is something about technology, or is it like just toxic article floating around. So you could get these kind of interesting moderation on the articles, and not but the least categories. That's the topic. Categories, categorization, like if you let's say you have thousands of articles and you would like to categorize them without putting any effort, just use this API. It's gonna it has a very exhaustive list of how many categories it has, and it has multi-label classification, and that's where you see, let's say the last one, news/technology news. It could have been any news, but this one was technology, so just categorize this as technology. And those were the two more topics coming up, which then takes me to show you how to do this. Yeah, it's not coming up. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how your Google Cloud would look like. And the first thing you would have to do is go to your console and enable your billing. Then go and type in natural language. Yep, there you go. And you would have to enable, because I have already enabled it, you would see it is enabled. Next thing up, you would have to activate the APIs, and you would have APIs and service account enabled. And that's when you would see your natural language API coming up. You would have to set a credential so that this is just you using the APIs. And when you set a credential, you would get an option to create key here. And that would lead you to download a key, which would then be a JSON key downloaded to your local. And you could use that local key to enable APIs on your local machine using Python. So while this is how you set up your Google account, let's move to the code and see how it looks like. So the key which I downloaded would look something like this. Jargon you won't be able to understand, but that's how the key would look like. And the first step would be installing Google Cloud Languages package, pip install, as simple as that. Then we would be importing Google Cloud Language version V. There are two versions, V and V1 and V2. You could use either. I have used V1. Just one line and then a couple of more as per whatever analysis you're doing. Next, set up authentication. So that's where you are setting your environment with Google application credentials, and you are giving part of that key which you have downloaded as JSON. Next up, we have to set up a client. Because you're using RESTful APIs, you need to set up a client. And this would be as simple as referencing the package and then calling the language service. So that is all which needs in terms of setting it up and using Google Natural Language API on your local machine. Next, let's say I have this text which says, "Incredible joy filled in the air when Maria completed lifelong dream becoming medical doctor, and after years of hard work and dedication, she is now top graduate at Stanford Medical School." And that's the text which I've used. Because you do not have any kind of ETL process here, you would have to call something as language model dot document, which basically takes any text and convert it into a Google document object. And you would refer this object going forward to do any kind of analysis. So that's done. We have prepped the text. Moving on, we would do a simple client call to analyze sentiment. We would pass over documents. And this gives 90% positive. Because it's a positive number, you see it was a positive paragraph, 90% sounds good. Entity analysis, analyze entity. It has recognized Maria as person. It has recognized Stanford Medical School as an organization, and so forth, so on. Doctor as person, you can see very easy to do that. Syntax analysis, which is basically token by token, word by word. What word was what? Let's say Maria was noun, adjective. So you could literally, this would help you to, let's say you want to analyze something in the corpus, that how many times something was appreciated, and that's what adjectives. So you could target all the adjectives from this list and get a holistic list of adjectives from here. Moving on, text classification. So that is when you try to classify what that text was. It says health because there was a medical college mentioned, and it was a medical degree, medical student. It was related to health. It hasn't gone to the multi-class classification because the text was very small. You see, it was just 2 lines of text. That was a quick demo of how you use API. If you have an elaborate use case, such as news article analysis, what I tried doing here was I took two kind of articles. One was regarding stock market and a tech company, and a 2% increase in their share market prices because of AI. And second article was something about environmental activists doing something out of the city and policy change and stuff like that. Again, same concept. I made a function which does all the four things: sentiment analysis, entity analysis, syntax analysis, and text classification, calling each of the objects simultaneously for both the articles and displaying the results. And that's how you could get a comparative picture of both the articles. So the first one was 0.5% positive. Yes, it was a positive article. Some company just had 2% stock price increase. Article 2, which was about environment and activist, is negative. You could see it came up as negative. Entities, top entities in the article, you could very quickly get what are the highlights or the key terms coming from those articles. First article, stock markets, earning, tech company, performance, increase. Second article was all about activist, climate change, actions, demonstration out of city. So that basically gives you a power of understanding an article in a very quick way. You just get a crisp of what was happening in the article, even without doing or using any LLMs or any sophisticated models. Most common part of speech, if someone is interested to see how many times someone was mentioned or something was mentioned or some adjectives were mentioned, you could target this part of the table where you get count of what adjectives or what part of speech were more present. Text classification. Article 1, which was business and industrial, 85%. Finance and investing, 0.73%. So you could see here, because I used more text, it was able to have a multi-classification. It not only told me that it was a finance article, but it was also about investing, because the article mentioned stock prices. Article 2 was all about people, society issues, yes, environmental issues, 97%. And then it was also somewhat about science, ecology, and environment. Very well done. So that was a quick demo of how you could use Google NLP APIs to do pretty much a lot of things, which would lead to a very good, insightful NLP, real-time NLP. And you could see it was just like not even 100 line of code, which I've written. And you could have a method or a API or a wrapper written on top of that, which does like continuous analysis and start saving results over the time. And if you would have done that, you could actually see results over time, or trend analysis of words or topics or sentiments coming across. And now that would lead me to go back to the presentation. Challenges in real-time NLP. We saw some challenges in traditional NLP. Here comes the challenges in real-time NLP. Latencies. While cloud is quick, we do have a problem of processing a lot of volume of data in real time as well. And that's where you have to look into optimized solution, distributed processing, and concepts like that. Data privacy. Yes. Cloud privacy. You're using open source APIs, you're using open source solution, you're legitimately giving them access to all your data. So if you're doing any kind of text analysis which is confidential or which concerns GDPR, you should have to think about stuff like encryption, or basically dealing around the complex GDPR policies before you put your data on cloud or do any kind of text analysis. Accuracy. Well, text analysis, because it's unstructured, it does have complication of having a very good model if you're using online model. And that's where you have to look into precision in real-time analysis. And that's where the accuracy of the model or hyperparameter tuning of these models comes into picture. And you would have to focus more on tuning the model rather than just using an advanced model. Handling multilingual data. If you have your corpus or data which has a lot of languages, that's where your multi-language models or language-specific fine-tuning comes into picture. Cost management. Well, cloud is accessible to everyone, but it's not free. So you have to look into cost management as well. Efficient APIs, you have to make sure that you're not using APIs for some key analysis, and then at the end, you see that you just ended up having some junk results, and that's not useful, even though you ended up paying for that. And you should, that's where efficient APIs, caching strategies, and hybrid cloud approaches comes into picture, that you should have an efficient architecture underneath to do any kind of analysis, or architecture in terms of cloud setup when you're calling these APIs or using any kind of models, that you don't have a big hole in your pocket. Moving on, that's basically one of the toughest questions which I had for tonight. There's a very famous paper which says attention is all you need. And the question is, what does attention mean? I don't know if someone has heard about that, but this is a very famous paper, which was basically a benchmark for NLP, and all your advanced model, transformer model, BERT, GPT, and everything is based on one paper, which was released by Google, and it's called Attention is All You Need. What do you think that attention is? Well, I'm impressed. 9 people have answered that question correctly. Focus on specific part of the input of the sequence to improve prediction. So one of the caveats of primitive or traditional or early time approaches were that these NLP models were not able to hold the context. The window of holding context was as small as 3 words or 4 words. So as soon as your cursor moves 10 words ahead in the text, the model was not able to remember what was 10 words behind. And that's what attention means here, where this paper basically explains how LSTMs, long-term short-term memory, LSTMs were one of its kind model, which has very good attention holding capability, where you could have, where algorithm can hold attention of not only just word, but like a paragraph. And that's why models like BERT, transformers based approaches are basically making change in the world, because with that, you could analyze big paragraphs and even pages of documents and even research paper, because the model is able to hold attention from line 1 of the research paper to last line of the research paper. Well, that brings us to the futuristic trends in NLP. We do have a lot of futuristic looking stuff going around. Gen AI is one of them. But just to put context, or just to put it on the slide, there are a couple of things which I would like to focus on. A, multimodal capability. Text, speech, vision, audio to text. This all could be brought into one. And that's where you have multimodal capability coming into picture, and NLP would be like text analysis would be one of them, that you basically combine your text, your numbers, your images together and do some very fantastic analysis too. Enhancement of multi-language support. Well, we do have English as top of one of the languages, but we one of the futuristic trend is that where you enter any language, as primitive as weird as Indian languages, or in India we have 29 languages, and I don't know more than 5 of them. So I would be surprised if I could have a translator which could translate everything accurately. And I'm sorry to say that Google still doesn't have very good translation when it comes to Indian languages or Asian languages. So that's where enhancement of multi-language support system comes into picture, and that's one of the futuristic trends in NLP. Edge computing integration, bringing NLP capabilities closer to data sources. But that's an interesting one. Edge computing, you do have cloud infrastructure which you could leverage, but edge computing is a concept of its own, which is used, if you would read a bit about how Netflix makes content available to you, or at a certain reason, and why do you see a specific content is available in UK very quickly while you have to wait, or it's not available in US or India. That's where you do not access the main server, but you access the server which is locally somewhere near to your, and that's where the concept of edge NLP Edge computing comes into picture, but then NLP does not have any such application right now around. Oops, I would need to charge my laptop before that shuts off. Yes, sorry for delay. Moving on, explainable AI in NLP. Well, explainable AI is still a buzz of the market, and it has way to go when it comes to NLP. We do not, a lot of people use deep learning models without even understanding what is going on. So that's a black box, explainable AI. Even though you are using, let's say you do have a complex pipeline to use Gemini, how are you explaining that? You're not able to explain what's going on inside neural networks. I bet anyone would be able to explain that to business. So explainable AI in terms of NLP is something to look out for. Integration with generative AI models like GPT and BERT, well, that's where you could leverage cloud like AWS, Google, at a very minimum cost to use the sophisticated model and play around with that. I would highly suggest go on any cloud platform. Just make an account, you will get some free credits, well enough to play around. I was surprised that I got around 1,000 credit just to enable Gen AI packages. So when you go to Google or anything, you have to enable services which you want to use, and they do end up giving you a lot of credits for your free playground. And that would be great if you could go to any of the cloud services and just enable a couple of services around NLP and around Gen AI and see how it works. Q&A. Any questions?
Hello, and thank you for your talk. And so my first question is about the capabilities of Google NP.
NLP
yeah,
APIs, yeah.
So in that case, does Google NLP takes URL as input, or you have to do the crawling and parsing on your site?
You know, so the scratching part, the text scratching part, you would have to write an ETL process to scratch news articles, or you could basically have a DB connection or something like that. You could read from your DB and call the APIs to get the results. But the part of making text perfect is something which you would have to do, like a bit of NLP text, like cleaning pipeline, so that you do not end up, let's say, feeding in hashtags or feeding in special characters, because that might hamper the whole performance of the APIs. So yes, that's one caveat where you would have to write some Python code or cleaning code before you call the APIs. But Google NLP APIs do have that mechanism where you make your text to a Google document object, and it does a bit of cleaning where it basically deals with commas, deals with spaces, deals with maybe short forms and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question. Actually, is another topic that you mentioned, that is privacy.
Sorry, what?
Is privacy, and you want to keep confidential your data. So one case is where you want to keep your data confidential.
Yeah.
And another case that is quite common in the industry is that you train a model, you deploy a model with your data, but it's actually the client that is worried about the confidentiality of their data.
Yes. So, well, there are I mean, if you're using open source APIs, you would have to look into licensing of the models. So you just can't use OpenAI's, let's say, any GPT model in your business without discussing about license, because different models would have different versions of license, which basically tells about how much of the data they would be taking from your API calls to them. to their end for maintenance purposes or for just logging purposes. So they might like store data like XYZ company uploaded 100 documents about customer complaints, where one of the complaints were, let's say, claims were not met on time, which is a very huge thing. If that gets like in news that some company is not able to meet claims of their customer, that's going to burn the company down. So there's different kind of approaches which basically concerns around using these. And one thing is like discussing that openly with third party and seeing like how you could have as much control as you could on your end rather than their end. So one thing is like you fine tune your model. So you have a basic model from OpenAI, but you fine tune it at your end with your context, with your embeddings, so that it does well in your context and everything. Because you have fine tuned it at your end, you have the control of the model and it stays inside your premises. That's one thing. B, when I say security, it's not just about what model you're using, it's also about what data you're feeding in. If you have a report which mentions someone's name, someone's social security number or insurance number, and you have not masked that, and you're feeding that data directly in the model, it's not company's fault, it's your fault. So you would have to take care of what you're feeding in your model. And that's where the ETL process comes into picture, where developer would have to make sure and look into that no personal information is being fed in the model, because then you just can't go and say, oh, Google stole my data. No, it was you feeding into those models that you just stole someone's social security number. And they might have stored that somewhere, because you never know, because you didn't look into licensing as well. So that's what the security concerns comes into picture.
Okay, thank you.
You have criticized a few times the use of open source APIs. I'm not sure if I would use a definition that is the same as yours of open source APIs. When I think at open source APIs, I think at APIs that could be deployed on my infra, and so that's actually the least risky solution ever. You can inspect the code, peer review the code. It's under one of those 25 odd licenses recognized by the community.
Yeah.
So
when I criticize, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it has to be taken with pinch of salt.
But it's not because it's open source. It's because it's not on-prem.
It's not on-prem because a lot of companies do have this initial hiccups of using something which is not in their control. Like, for example, if you would like to make your own, let's say, GPT version of your own, just like ChatGPT, if you would want to make something at your end, well, open source APIs is the thing which you would have to go with, because training a model from scratch to make something as big and as efficient as ChatGPT would not be possible until
it might be worth for you to review a definition of open source.
Open source is very good. Like, I do a lot of contribution in terms of enhancing some pipelines, or maybe just making some enhancement in someone else's project. That's open source contribution. When I say open source APIs, it's a lot of APIs which are made on top of certain closed source APIs as well.
Open source doesn't mean this in our community. Open source is a very specific meaning that was given by two spellers around 1995, and there are a number of people, including Richard Stallman, that are using definition. But I think that you're using it in a way that is not the way in which it's used in a software engineering community.
Sounds like somebody slightly any other questions from the room?
Behind you.
Hi, that was really great. When you were doing the entity extraction, I noticed that a lot of the categories were coming back as other. Is it possible to define your own categories, A? And B, is it relatively easy to kind of, if you can, is it relatively easy to train into those other categories? So let's say you're interested in, I don't know, the weather. Can you like kind of look for, and when you're extracting the entities, say like, train your own category? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for that one, so you cannot customize these APIs because these are REST APIs. You can just put certain parameters to how you would like the results to be. But if you would like a more elaborate analysis, that's where Vertex AI comes into picture, where you could customize these models and have your own model or fine tune your own model. So if you go to Vertex AI, you enable compute engine, you could select from multiple models which are already pre-trained, and that's when you could fine tune each of the models as per what you need. And that's very, very, very easy and not very complex as well. Fine tuning a model on Vertex AI or any other platform, but this API would have limited capabilities in terms of fine tuning because you're not fine tuning, you're just calling an API.
Just on that fine tuning, expand about what you mean by fine tuning, just to.
It's a very machine learning concept where you have a model, but you could tell a model what to do in terms of, would you like to, let's say you have a model where certain categories are majorly coming and certain categories are not coming as much. And that's a very classic imbalance class problem, where if you have imbalance in your data, your machine learning model would tend to predict something which is majorly happening rather than something which is not, right? And that's when you look into things like penalizing your model, or maybe putting some weights to minority class. So any kind of model would give you capabilities of certain parameters which you could feed in to play around. Maybe something like on top of my mind.
Just to kind of,
yeah.
When you mean by fine tuning,
yeah.
running an ML pipeline
Yeah.
to do some more tuning to an already existing model.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So in order to do the fine tuning, there's going to be a cost, right?
Yes.
And it's likely to be pricey.
Yes,
Right, okay.
it is pricey. Yes.
Okay.
Cloud, it's accessible, but it's
Yes.
gonna be pricey.
So I guess where I was coming from that was if you really need to fine tune a model, then you need to be pretty clear as to
What you want.
And how
Yeah.
much you're willing to pay.
Yes.
Or to live with the limitations of the
Yeah,
existing.
and that's where like you could do a small POC rather than running the whole thing all together. You could have a very small POC or concept, or very, 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 very small use case, and do that rather than doing everything at once.
So one interesting question: what do you think the future of NLP services will be like in the future? One reason why I mention this is because so what we've seen is the effect of the attention paper and the whole. People forget that GPT is generative pre-trained transformers. So the effect of transformer-based architectures has had a big effect on. If you go to Hugging Face, there are hundreds of LLMs.
Yes.
And some folks are even saying, well, actually now, really, if it's a model that has been trained on 7 billion parameters, that's actually a small language model.
Yes, as compared to
we've been running small or 7 billion parameter models on NVIDIA Edge devices, and to get really good results. So I think what my point is that what do you think the future of NLP and what the effect of transformer-based LLMs will have on NLP?
Well, to be honest, like when I start doing even if I just have to do any kind of NLP analysis, I go to transformer-based model first rather than using ChatGPT or OpenAI's APIs. I do use BERT a lot. It's great. People tend to have forgotten BERT or simple transformer or sequential models, but it does wonders. Like 7,000 is still not that small thing, that small.
7 billion.
Yeah, 7 billion. Yes, 7 billion. It's not yet small thing. And even before, when ChatGPT came into picture, BERT models and transformer models were doing pretty well. And there are a lot of customized transformer models as well. So Financial Times has its own customized transformer model, which is fine-tuned on financial news. And if you would like to have any pipelines at your end to just analyze financial articles, you could just go and use that fine-tuned model rather than using a generic model. So scope is great, future is great. It's all about how you define it and how you use it. And it's more about being pragmatic of your use case.
It'd be interesting to see how companies deal with it in the future. In other words, you can take an open source model, great, and
Yeah.
you can deploy it on-prem.
Yes.
So you don't need vast infrastructure to run some of the.
Some other,
some of-
yeah.
So obviously you need enough, but what it means is then I think companies will be able to find their way around the risk profile by saying, well, I'll take a model that has a known provenance, but I'll run it in my own estate
Yes.
and then have all the advantages.
It does. I
then-
mean,
but-
my previous company, it was an insurance company, and they actually had their own version of ChatGPT, where none of the API, we were not allowed to access any website, any open source website which leads to AI or anything.
You mean open source, you mean public then?
Public,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
any public thing. Even GitHub was not available until you're a developer. In that context, they made their GPT version of their own, where people could ask literally anything on the GPT, and they just keep improving. And that's where the positive side of these things come into picture, that you have, if you have capability, you have resources, you have finance to finance that project, you could have something of your own at a very least, not say very least, but then comparatively lesser effort than you would have done 5 years before.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for introducing the topic and just going through the demos. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause. Right. Thank you so much. Right, 7 minutes stands between us and finding out who is going to be the winner of what I've decided is our newly adopted mascot. You are free to give it to anyone else, but I would hold mine with pride. And of course, our wonderful trophy first prize on the quiz. One of the things that we wanted to do this year with Brighton Cloud is to potentially showcase just a really, really quick product or service from a different cloud provider. Obviously, for some reason, we seem to be very Google inspired this month. One thing I wanted to talk about really was about Google Notebook LM. Who here has heard of it? Who here has used it? It's fun, isn't it? So what we have here is just a little bit of stuff. So instead of me talking, my voice is okay at the moment, but it's been not great recently for the past couple of months. But otherwise, I thought it'd be good for us to get Google Notebook LM to tell us a little bit about itself. What I've essentially done is I've fed in a blog post into the notebook as the source. Obviously, you've got different features. So for example, a chat, but inside this area where you've got the studio, you have lots of different functions. The function which I'm going to play today is going to be a podcast. So if you feed it information, you're able to get 2 interactive hosts. And one of the new updates which they've got is the fact that you're able to ask questions along the way. So, Cameron, if you're able to press the button.
All right. So, you know how much we love digging into the latest and greatest in AI, right?
Always up for a good deep dive.
Well, this time it's all about Notebook LM, Google's AI research assistant.
Oh, yeah. The one that's kind of like having a super smart research partner.
Exactly. But hold on to your hats because things just got a whole lot more interesting.
Ooh, lay it on me.
So Google just dropped a whole bunch of new features for Notebook LM, and we're talking a complete overhaul.
Seriously, like what kind of overhaul are we talking?
I mean, we're talking a brand new look, the ability to actually chat with the AI as you work, and even a premium version for, well, the power users out there.
Wow, they really went all out.
They really did. And we're going to break it all down right here, right now.
Deep
All
dive
right, let's do
anymore.
it. Where do we even begin?
Well, first let's talk about the makeup. Notebook LM got a serious glow up.
Glow up, huh? Okay, I'm
in
intrigued.
general, you can
So
hear
the
what it's
interface is
doing.
now divided
it goes through
into
the
3
different stuff
main
in terms of
areas.
the interface, and we can stop
Sources,
the audio now,
chat.
Cameron, if that's okay. But it kind of gives you a interesting way. Obviously, be very, very careful in terms of privacy and information of taking notes and research. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting one. And
my wife's a teacher. So just to give an example, my wife's a teacher. Now, I work in AI, and I hadn't come across Google Notebook LM a couple of months back, right? And I mentioned it to her, and she said, oh, yeah, I've been using it for months, because she's doing a degree, and she's doing a maths degree. So she's fed all her notes and stuff in, and then listens to some of the podcasts to help her revision. So really nice use
that's
case.
a really great use case for it, especially with that learning and training element as well from it. Next slide. Right. So in general, you can do lots of other things as well as the interactive podcast. I quite like that. I kind of find it funny because of I kind of find it funny just because of the language style and stuff like that, so it makes you pay attention. But otherwise, other things you can do is you can ask it some information. So, and you can get FAQs out, as well as inside the chat, you can ask questions. If you have any questions, because this is only a quick demo, ask Google Notebook LM. Right, let's finish off the quiz. I think we have 3 or 4 questions, if you're able to get your phones out again. It's first time using Mentee as well, which is nice, because it's all embedded. Okay, let's start. So answer fast to get more points. Which cloud provider offers Amazon, I've written in comprehend for service for NLP? Oh, is it a trick though? Well, that'll be fastest finger first. I'm gonna use Bruno. 10 extra points, whoever wrote that. Thank you. I probably changed it on an edit going, oh, I haven't called it XYZ. Okay, what is the... Oh, so that one's gone a spider. That's the next one. Fun. So, but I know it's been quick. We'll be back in a second. Okay. I think it's close, hasn't it? Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's round down to the close. In terms of the leaderboard, we have got, potentially it could have been like a timeout thing. Magical Rhino. Is that anyone inside this room, or is that someone online? Perfect. Congratulations. You are the winner of our little nautical mascot and also first place trophy. On that note, yeah, thank you very much for joining us at Brighton Cloud. We've got, as I mentioned, our LinkedIn page and details for our next meetup. Another thing as well is that if you're interested in BigQuery in particular, if you go to www.bigquery.co.uk, Lacey, who's one of the fellow organizers of Brighton Cloud, that's her website. Can't believe she got that name. That's going to be worth a fortune, I reckon. But you've got some really useful resources and material inside that website. But thank you very much for joining. Thank you.